When you were 7 years old, a single summer was enormous. June stretched out like it might never end. July felt like its own country. August was so long it contained entire versions of yourself. Last year, you blinked and it was December. You probably can't name 3 specific days from the last 6 months. Not because nothing happened, because your brain stopped recording the way it used to. There's a reason childhood felt infinite and adulthood feels like a blur. It's not nostalgia, it's not busyness, it's a precise, measurable change in how your brain processes new experience over time. And when you find out what's actually happening, you might finally understand why your life keeps disappearing on you. Let's start with something your brain does every single second of your life without you noticing. It predicts. Right now, your brain is not experiencing reality directly. It's generating a model of reality based on what it expects to happen next. Every sound, every sensation, every visual input you receive is filtered through a prediction engine that has been running since before you could walk. When reality matches the prediction, your brain barely registers it. When reality violates the prediction, your brain lights up. That gap between what you expected and what actually happened is what your brain records as a memory. That gap is what makes time feel real. This is why your first day at a new school felt like it lasted forever. Everything violated your predictions. The hallways were wrong, the sounds were unfamiliar, the faces were new. Your brain had to process every single moment as genuinely new information. And new information is expensive. It takes energy, attention, and actual neural resources to process. So your brain encoded it all. Every hallway, every voice, every anxious minute waiting to find out where you were supposed to sit at lunch. The day felt long because your brain was working at full capacity the entire time. Now, think about a Tuesday at a job you've had for 5 years. You don't remember the drive in. You don't remember what you ate for lunch. You don't remember the walk from the parking lot to your desk, or the exact conversation you had at 10 a.m. or what the weather was like. Not because nothing happened, because your brain predicted all of it correctly. There was no gap, no violation, nothing worth encoding. Your brain filed the entire day under same as before and moved on before it was even over. This is what psychologists call the Oddball Effect. Novel experiences expand your perception of time. Repeated experiences compress it. In 2003, researcher Virginie van Wassenhove at Caltech ran a series of experiments measuring how people perceive the duration of images flashed in front of them. Repeated images felt shorter. Genuinely new images felt longer, even when the actual display time was identical. The brain wasn't measuring duration. It was measuring surprise, and it was using surprise as a proxy for time. The older you get, the fewer genuinely new experiences you encounter. Not because your life gets worse, because your brain gets better. It builds more accurate predictions. It recognizes more patterns. It needs less processing power to navigate the world. The cost of that efficiency is time. Each year that feels shorter than the last is your brain running more smoothly, getting better at discarding what it already knows. But there's another mechanism running underneath this one. It explains something most people never think to question: why childhood memories feel more vivid than anything that happened last month, even the unimportant ones, even a random afternoon in your grandmother's kitchen that had no particular significance. Why is that afternoon still there, crisp and detailed, when last Thursday is already gone? In the 1980s and 1990s, psychologists studying memory across the lifespan kept running into the same pattern in their data. When they asked older adults to recall their most vivid memories, the answers didn't cluster in childhood. They clustered in a specific window, roughly ages 15 to 25. The memories from that decade were sharper, more emotionally loaded, and more frequently recalled than memories from any other period of life. Researchers name this the Reminiscence Bump, and for years, they struggled to fully explain it. The leading explanation now involves 2 things happening simultaneously during that window. First, novelty. Nearly everything is new. You are having experiences for the first time constantly. First job, first heartbreak. First time living somewhere that isn't your parents' house. First time making a decision that nobody else could make for you. Your brain is running in full novelty mode, encoding everything because nothing yet fits an established pattern. Second, identity. During those years, you are actively constructing a story about who you are. Researchers believe that memories from this period get tagged differently, not just as events, but as the raw material of selfhood. Your brain holds onto them because they are not just things that happened. They are the explanation for why you became you. This is why a song from when you were 19 can stop you cold in a supermarket. Not because the song is good, because that song is an anchor to a version of yourself your brain never fully let go of. The emotional weight isn't nostalgia. It's the brain recognizing something it once used to build itself. But here's where it gets stranger, because the reminiscence bump doesn't just explain why old memories feel vivid. It explains why time after it feels thin. Once the identity formation window closes, your brain shifts modes. The urgent novelty processing of adolescence slows down. Your predictions get more accurate. Your routines deepen. And the ratio of new experiences to total lived experience starts dropping fast. Think about it mathematically. When you are 5 years old, 1 year is 20% of your entire life. Every single thing about that year can still be new because everything about existence is still new. When you are 40, 1 year is 2.5% of your total life. Your brain has seen most of it before. The software doesn't upgrade. It just runs the same code faster. In 2019, neuroscientist David Eagleman at Stanford ran an experiment that measured this directly. Participants were exposed to sequences of images inside a brain scanner. Some images were genuinely new. Others were repeated. The brain activity during novel images was dramatically higher. More regions activated, more neural resources recruited, more metabolic energy consumed. Repeated images barely registered. The brain had filed them. Then Eagleman asked participants to estimate how long each sequence lasted. The sequences with more novel images were consistently judged as longer. The repeated sequences felt compressed, almost instantaneous. The same clock time. Completely different experiences of duration. Your brain isn't measuring time the way a clock does. It's measuring newness. And it's reporting newness back to you as the feeling of time passing. This is also why the last 2 weeks of a vacation always feel shorter than the first 2 days. Day one of a new place is enormous. The smells are different. The light falls differently. Every meal is an experiment, and every street is a question you haven't answered yet. Your brain is encoding everything because everything is worth encoding. By the end of the second week, you've built a map. The walk to the beach is automatic. The restaurant you liked is a known quantity. Your predictions are accurate. And the days start slipping through your hands like they do at home. And here's the part that should genuinely concern you. Modern life is specifically almost perfectly designed to minimize novelty. You wake up in the same bed. You check the same apps in the same order within the first 4 minutes of consciousness. You drive the same route to work. You eat variations of the same 10 or 15 meals. You talk to largely the same people about largely the same things in largely the same places. The modern world is optimized for efficiency, comfort, and frictionlessness. Your brain's time perception was built for a world that was constantly, unavoidably new. You are running ancient hardware in an environment it was never designed for. And the result is years that evaporate before you've had a chance to actually inhabit them. But here is what most people miss. This is not inevitable. It is not aging. It is not something that simply happens to you after 30. It is a specific mechanism with a specific input. And the input can be changed. In 2020, researchers at the University of Miami published a study on autobiographical memory density. They tracked how people remembered periods of their lives that contained high concentrations of novel experiences compared to periods dominated by routine. The results were sharp. The novel periods felt subjectively longer in retrospect. More individual days could be recalled. More specific moments surfaced when participants tried to reconstruct those stretches of time. Life felt more inhabited. More like something that had actually been lived rather than merely survived. The opposite was equally true. Periods of deep routine. Same job, same apartment, same social circle, same weekly rhythm for years, collapsed almost entirely in memory. Participants could not identify specific days from those stretches, could not separate one week from the next. Entire years reduced to a single flat impression, not a life remembered. A blur acknowledged. 2014, neuroscientist Tali Sharot at University College London found another layer to this. She was studying how the brain assigns emotional weight to memories, and what she found was that the brain preferentially preserves memories that were either highly novel or highly emotional. Routine memories don't just feel forgettable, they are structurally less durable at the neural level. The brain physically invests less energy in storing them, not because the moments weren't real, because they weren't surprising, which means a life built almost entirely around comfort and predictability is a life the brain is actively choosing not to fully record, not out of malice, out of optimization. Your brain is doing exactly what it was built to do, conserving resources by filing the predictable and preserving the surprising. The problem is that you are living in a world designed to remove as much surprise as possible, and your brain is cooperating perfectly. There is one final piece to this, and it might be the strangest part of everything we have covered. In 1962, a French geologist named Michel Siffre volunteered to spend 2 months alone underground with no clocks, no sunlight, and no external time cues of any kind. Just him, a tent, food supplies, and the absolute darkness of a glacier cave in the Alps. He wanted to study how the human body maintained biological rhythms without any external reference points. What he discovered instead was something he hadn't planned to find. When he emerged, he believed he had been underground for about 25 days. He had been there for 63. He had experienced roughly half the time he was actually living through. When researchers analyzed his journals, the pattern was clear. In the first weeks, when the cave was still strange and he was still adjusting, his time estimates were closer to accurate. As the weeks wore on and the cave became familiar, and his routine solidified, wake up, eat, take measurements, sleep, time began to collapse. Days he experienced as short were precisely the days in which nothing new had happened. His brain, with no external anchors and nothing novel to process, defaulted into temporal drift. The familiar requires almost no processing time to experience, even when you are physically living through hour after hour of it. Siffre went back underground voluntarily in 1972, this time for 6 months. He nearly broke completely. Not from isolation, not from the darkness or the silence, from the disappearance of time itself. He described it as the most terrifying thing he had ever experienced. The feeling that his life was simply not happening, that he was alive and present and breathing and yet somehow absent from his own existence. He was not wrong. He was experiencing in its most extreme and unavoidable form what most people experience slowly and invisibly across the ordinary arc of a modern life. Here's what all of this actually means. Your brain has been lying to you about time, not out of cruelty, out of efficiency. Every morning that feels like every other morning is a morning your brain decided wasn't worth the energy of fully recording. Every week that blurs into the next is a week that contained nothing your prediction engine hadn't already processed 100 times. Every year that vanishes is a year your brain filed under same as before it was even finished. You are not running out of time. You are running out of newness. And those are not the same problem. The 7-year-old who found an entire world inside a single summer wasn't living in slow motion. She was living in higher resolution. Everything was new. Everything was worth encoding. Every day was a separate, fully inhabited thing with its own texture and its own light. That capacity doesn't disappear as you age. It just stops being fed. Your brain is still capable of full resolution. It is still capable of encoding days you will remember decades from now. It is still capable of making a single week feel as long and full as an entire year of childhood. It just needs the same input it has always needed. Something it hasn't predicted before. Something that forces it to actually pay attention. Something genuinely, unavoidably new. The years are not getting shorter. Your life is not accelerating. Your brain is getting better at ignoring the parts of your life that look the same as yesterday. And the only way to slow it down is to give it something it doesn't already know.